so that everyone can find a seat if you want to. I know some of you prefer to stand, that's fine too. But I want to be respectful of everyone's time and get started for this evening and share some information about the bond measure that will be on the February 13th ballot for North Kitsap School District. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Lauren Evans. I'm the superintendent of the school district, and this is my 7th year working in North. And ever since I've arrived here, we've had a really long, winding road talking about our facilities, looking at how we improve conditions for our students, and how do we provide a roadmap for the future for our school district. This evening, what I'd like to do is to spend about 25 minutes just reviewing the overall bond measure, letting you know what's on the project list and how we're going to approach that. And then we'll strive to have some time for questions and go from there. So I'll go ahead and get started. So the road to the bond actually started back in 2018. And in that year, we had a long discussion that involved many community stakeholders, staff, students, parents, and leadership. And we talked about the strategic plan. And what the strategic plan was is a guiding vision for the entire school district that will drive our work forward in all regards. And in that plan were 4 main goals. And these goals have really driven the work of the school district in a number of ways. Everything from programmatic decisions to how we staff schools, to the way that we look at what we're doing across the district and in each building. And these goals have really driven our work, and they've been very valuable to us, especially when we're experiencing very difficult times, especially during the pandemic. We were able to really rely on the strategic plan and its foundational information to help us drive our decision-making process. At the same time, we had a couple of groups of people meeting on an ongoing basis, chiefly our community-driven facilities committee. And we started having conversations in 2017 about what we needed to do to address the facilities concerns that were facing our school district. When I walked into my job in 2017, I was greeted with a portfolio of information about our district facilities, and it was quickly brought to my attention that we had $90 million of deferred maintenance across our buildings in this school district. That was a pretty overwhelming piece of information to digest. And so at that point in time, we started having the conversation about how do we begin to address this problem, both in the short term, addressing immediate emergency issues, and how do we come up with a plan for the long term to both revitalize our buildings and also engage in modernization and construction as needed and where needed. In 2018, our voters supported us with the passage of our first capital levy. That was the first of its kind here for the school district. That levy allowed us to take about a $45 million swing at the deferred maintenance issue. We were able to replace HVAC systems, roofs, install security upgrades at all of our campuses, and address a host of other issues that were at every single school building across the school district. In 2022, our voters reauthorized that capital levy, again supporting that measure. That's going to allow us to continue doing some maintenance work, and in a moment I'll talk with you about a couple of big projects that are happening as a part of the capital levy that was authorized in 2022. Also at that time, we began talking about the long-term need for the school district. And it was around 2018 when I started talking with community groups about the need for the capital levy that we unearthed the idea and the knowledge that we will be going to the community for a bond measure sometime in the near future. And graphs that I shared with those community presentations in 2018 clearly showed that a bond measure was going to be coming into play. At that time, we were talking about 2022 for the bond. Of course, the pandemic changed a lot of things, and so at that point in time, we deferred it to 2024. So those have been a part of our history all the way through. Goal 3 in our strategic plan says equitable access and opportunity for every child. And one of the things that we know is that this school district right now, in terms of its facilities, is still a district of have and have-nots. And so we have some campuses that have resources and amenities that other campuses do not. And part of the goal of this bond is to continue to try to build equity for all of our campuses so that all of our kids have access to the resources that they need. What that means is that we have to kind of get out of the habit of making small swings at small projects and think about bigger visions and bigger projects for our school district. And that's not easy, it's hard. I'm going to be very honest with you. A lot of people have put a lot of time and effort into this process. We've had a lot of difficult conversations. And this is when I talk with our staff or other community groups who have worked with me over the last few years. I think it's important to share that I chose this community first. I bought my home here. It's my forever home. And the easy thing to do would just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna write out my term here and let the next person worry about these major issues and let them handle it. Because starting in November through February, I'm doing stuff like this every single night for several months, and it's a lot of hours and a lot of effort. And I'm doing it because I chose this community. I will live here through retirement. This is my chosen home. And when you make that decision and you're invested in the community, then it is incumbent on you, when you're the superintendent, to do the hard work, to do the right thing by your kids in your community. And so that is why I've undergone all of the time and all of the effort, have worked with numerous people to try to get to this place for this bond. We have to get out of the comfort zone and do the hard things, and that's what this bond is going to do. So before I talk about the bond, I want to talk about what's happening right here and right now. So as I mentioned, we had a capital levy in 2018 that allowed us to do a lot of project work across the school district and address a number of issues. And then in 2022, we had that capital levy reauthorized. And when that levy was reauthorized, the facilities committee and the school board made the decision that we would engage in some significant project work with that levy. And so 2 projects are identified clearly, with a third that had an asterisk by it, which I'll explain in a minute. But the major projects that we had were Paulsbo Middle School. Any of you who have been to Paulsbo Middle School over the last many, many years know that behind the building are 10 very old portable buildings. That is a significant portion of classrooms for students at that school to be attending their classes in, and those portables are extremely old. The project that the capital levy is letting us do is add 10 state-of-the-art classrooms that will co-join the academic building down to the gym at Paulsbo Middle School. It not only improves the learning space for our children, it also improves the safety and security of the campus, because the kids won't be matriculating outside along Hosmark as they go from classes down to the gym to the cafeteria. So this is a big project. If you've driven by Paulsbo Middle, you've probably seen the concrete coming out of the ground. It's a very exciting project, and we're going to be really delighted to welcome our students into that new facility. The second project that the capital levy is funding is a new gymnasium for Suquamish Elementary. And I think it's important to say that when we were looking at the capital levy and looking at projects that we could do, we put priority on schools that we felt were of the highest need. And so we prioritized Wolfley Elementary, Suquamish Elementary, and Paulsbo Middle. And the reason we did that is because we felt that this was the most important place to center our resources and our effort. So regardless of what happens with the bond, Suquamish is guaranteed to get their new gym. We're bidding it out next Friday. Shovels will go in the ground in March. It's the same with Wolfley. The capital levy has money put aside for Wolfley's gym. We are holding the money to find out what we get with the bond. When the bond is successful, that money will be put towards the construction for Wolfley, because that was earmarked for their gym. If we need to look at a plan B, we're going to still put the gym at Wolfley. So that's going to be a significant part of the program. And the reason we're doing that at those 2 buildings is that 1, we feel that they have the highest priority, but 2, they both have what I call a cafegematorium, which is, it's kind of like here, Pearson has the same issue. We're hoping to address that through the bond. But this little room right here is where we teach all the PE classes for kids at this school, and we attempt to serve them lunch as well. It does not work well for the master's schedule. It's extremely challenging for the teachers and for the kids. So we're trying very hard through the levy program and through the bond program to eradicate that problem at all of our schools and give every elementary school a proper gym and a proper lunchroom for their students. So I get asked the question then, well, gee, Lauren, it sounds like you guys are doing amazing stuff with the levy, and I mean, you've gotten in the past and it's been successful and you're doing these projects, so you should just keep doing levies forever. And my answer to that is, that sounds great. That actually would be fairly nice to be able to just keep doing that. Except there's a key problem. There's a big difference between what a levy lets us do and what a bond will let us do. When we ask the voters to support us with a levy, we ask for an overall dollar amount, and that dollar amount is broken into year-over-year collection. So let's just say hypothetically, we ask for $40 million over 4 years. It means that we'll collect approximately $10 million every year. And what that means is that we have a cash flow problem, because that's the maximum amount that we can spend in any given year on projects for the district. So smaller projects like putting in a gym, putting in a couple of classrooms, we can mostly field that through levies, except that we have pressing need at several facilities concurrently at the same time. And then this building especially, and Wolfley Elementary, need a complete rebuild. And right now, elementary schools in 2023-24 dollars are bidding out at $70 million. That's the going rate. We can't get that kind of money through a levy. It's impossible. If we tried to raise $70 million in a levy and tried to collect that in a couple of years, tax rates would go to an unsustainable level. Whereas a bond allows us to collect the money all up front, do the work, and then we pay it back over a runway of 20 to 22 years. So that's why a bond measure is important, is that we're able to clear the money that's required to do the construction projects up front and do the work and then pay it back. It's not unlike when you go and buy a home. You take out a mortgage. So you get the house right away and you can live in it, and then you spend 20 to 30 years paying back the mortgage over time. That's exactly what we're trying to do for the school district. Get things done now in today's construction costs, rather than kicking the can down the road where it's going to be more expensive and delayed maintenance are all across the board. So that's the main difference. Also a difference is that levies are passed at 50% plus one, simple majority passage. Bonds are a little more difficult. They do have to meet 60% plus one voter support in order for them to get across the finish line. So what would we like to do with the bond? Four things chiefly. Three of them are kind of related, and then one is a standalone. Essentially, at the end of the day, what we want is for every kiddo in the North Kitsap School District to be in a quality learning environment. And for that to happen, we need to reduce or eliminate portables. And for us to do that, we need to build the classrooms that they would be in. By doing that, we also increase the safety and security of all of our elementaries, because kids will not be matriculating around outside during the day, they'll be inside the core facility. That's the chief goal of the bond. A secondary thing is that we're also looking to address known issues at all of our softball and baseball fields at the high schools. And we're going to do that by turfing and lighting those fields, and I'll talk about that more in just a second. So these were the things that came up as being highest of need. Again, a lot of discussion over several years by several folks to get us to that place. So number one at the top of the list is this facility, Pearson Elementary School. This facility is very challenging for a number of reasons. It dates back to about 1951. It has had a couple of updates along the way, but you can just look down this hallway and see that the original walls that are there were actually just empaneled out into the hallway when the 21st century came and we began doing all the high-tech cabling and wiring, because there's no way to route it except to just put it in between the old wall and to build basically a plywood new wall. So the facility is kind of beyond its usefulness in terms of its service to students and being able to meet the needs of a 21st century education. This facility is also very challenging for another reason, and that is the lot on which it sits. Back in the spring, I came out and met with parents and community members and the staff and talked about the challenges we were facing as we contemplated the future of Pearson. And the number one challenge we have is how would we try to put another school on this site that would actually house the number of students that we need to fully staff Pearson? And how do we do that while meeting contemporary code requirements like having a fire loop that goes all the way around the building, which currently does not exist? And we went to the architects and asked a lot of questions about that. They came back with several renderings, and every single one of them has problems. Chiefly, there's no way to separate out a bus loop and parent pickup and drop off, so the nightmare that happens every day here twice a day would continue in perpetuity. We also would run into issues with being able to bank up. The back of this lot has a big ravine that goes down at a pretty steep slope. To bank up that to be able to have a fire loop that will support a fire engine is a significant concern as well. And then on top of it, it's how do we build a new school here and still allow the children who are attending this school to go to school? It's very difficult. This building is currently right in the middle of the lot. We would have to find a way to either disperse kids out to other facilities or spend a lot of money putting temporary portables in to sustain education while the construction is going on. When I came and spoke with staff and came and spoke with parents and community, overwhelmingly, people said, we get it. We're not excited about the school having to possibly be relocated, but we understand the benefits of that. And so ultimately, the decision has been to move Pearson to a new parcel that is off of Finn Hill. This parcel is large, it is off the main arterial, it will allow for a full fire loop, it will allow for separate bus and parent pickup and drop off, and it will also be able to accommodate about 400 to 450 students, which means that we would be able to fully staff Pearson programmatically. Because we anticipate that with the school locating in this location, we'll be able to have about 100 kids from Vinland join the Pearson family over time, because it will be close to a couple of the neighborhoods that feed Vinland Elementary. So in short, what happens is we get a state-of-the-art facility for kids at the school. They get to continue attending school uninterrupted while it's being built. They will have a fully staffed program and staffing allocation, which has been a challenge here for a number of years. And we'll be able to continue to serve those kids well. So that is the CHOP program, and I can take questions on that. I know that there are folks here who really want to understand that better, and I'm happy to do that when we get to it. The second project on the list is Wolfley Elementary. By the time shovels go in the ground for Wolfley Elementary, it'll be about 35 years old. Doesn't seem that old, but when you have hundreds of kids running around a facility that has been problematic for several years, it is. Furthermore, the state agrees with us because they do have SCAP funding available for the construction project at Wolfley, which tells us that we are at the right time and the right place to consider this. Wolfley also has a host of aging portables behind it, which currently house the Options Program. The Options Program would like to have a permanent home, and they would like to have a resource-driven, specially designed place for their program. And we can accomplish that with a completely new build at Wolfley. This can be done concurrently on the site. The kids can stay enrolled in their current building, and we would put the new facility up front of the current building, so kids continue to attend their school while construction's underway. This was a lot of discussion for about 18 months for the facilities committee, because we understand that while we could possibly look at just trying to modernize the current building, the challenge we run into with expansion or modernization is, where do we put the kids for 2 years? We would have to break up families and break up grade levels and send kids across the district to house them, because we can't have them attend the building while it's under major construction. So that was the main concern there. So we would like to be able to keep the kids whole, keep families together, and ensure that we're able to provide a good instructional environment for them, and then provide them with an amazing new building at the end of it. Also on the bond program is Gordon Elementary. So Gordon Elementary has also some old portables along the side of it. They've been there for a number of years, and they went in not too long after Gordon was completed. Ironically, Gordon's blueprint showed the final pod on the building that was not built. So this is the blueprint that we have. We would put that final pod to the front of the building. We've got the room for it, the land for it, the space for it, and it will allow kids to be in a fully enclosed building, and those portables will go away. At Paulsville Elementary, we're going to do something called a Sage Modular Building. And the reason we're going that route at Paulsville Elementary is the construction level and finish of a Sage Modular is incredibly high. Actually, when I was in my doctoral program at SPU, most of my classes were in a Sage Modular building that's still being used at that university. And it's because the ability to outfit and kit those classrooms is really amazing. The modular building will allow us to have 6 to 8 classrooms, full restroom facilities, and we'll be able to easily co-join it to the rest of the campus. Unlike portables where kids are outside in between every single room, this will be one singular facility. We got the idea actually by looking at our neighbors down in Central Kitsap. They put one in at Silverdale Elementary. The kids love it, the staff love it, the community loves it, and what it's going to allow us to do is to put a quality learning environment in for students while not building a brick and mortar building that may be questionable or drive design 20 years later when we go to redo Paulsville Elementary School. So we want to meet the needs of kids now, but not chain that building to a design idea from 2023 when they are up on the docket in the 2040s. Also, this bond program is going to allow us to turf and light the baseball and softball fields at both high schools. Last year at Kingston High School, the baseball and softball teams had to play over 70% of their home games away And that's because the field conditions were just abysmal. I think that's criminal. So we would like to address that by fixing the fields at both schools. North doesn't have much better conditions. They've just been able to put some manpower behind it. But if you drive by either of the high schools on any weekend, you're gonna see coaches, kids, families, community members out there with shovels and rakes trying to keep those fields playable. We want them to spend their time practicing and enjoying the sport, not tending the fields. So by turfing these fields, we think we'll be able to increase the playability, the enjoyment, and the access for our athletes, but also for our entire community. Furthermore, we're going to be making some parking improvements at North, and if you've gone to a Friday night game there, you know how difficult it is to get in and out of that stadium. And at Kingston, we are going to be putting in a metal-based grandstand structure, kind of like what's at Flahowya down in Central, that will have a press box, it will be covered, it will have concessions, restrooms, and storage. So Kingston will have its own real facility and be able to host postseason play as well as other major community events there. And then last but not least, both of our middle schools will also be on the docket. At Kingston Middle School, we will be doing what we're calling a mid-cycle refresh. This is kind of like what happened at Suquamish Elementary with the last bond. Interior finishes will be completely redone, so flooring, walls, and furnishings, and then some enhancements done to the exterior as well. Kingston Middle School is in pretty good shape, and the classrooms are huge, which our teachers really like. And so what we want to do is to maintain that space, but make it feel more like 2024 rather than 1984. So that school is going to get a mid-cycle refresh of several $1 million. And then Paulsbo Middle School also has a cafegematorium situation going on. Right now in their gym, they put down a little curtain wall, and they try to serve lunch on one side of the curtain wall while they're running 2 sections of PE on the other side of the curtain wall. It's chaotic, and it's not really a great place for kids to have lunch or for the supervision of that experience either. So phase 2 of Paulsbo Middle School will allow for a commons to be put in the back area of Paulsbo Middle where the portables currently reside, and it will close in the entire school. So kids will no longer be matriculating outside at all. They'll have a commons area to gather in before school and after school and to have a proper place for lunch as well as to socialize. And it will allow them to have 3 full teaching spaces for their gym, which they desperately need. So those are the chief points. So this is kind of the graph where I explain how we're going to do all that for funding. And the answer is, back in 2001, this community supported the school district with a bond. That's what let Kingston High School get rebuilt, and it allowed for a major recycle and refresh at Suquamish Elementary, along with a couple of other locations. Pearson was included in that too. The dark red in this chart is the old bond. And in 2018, that bond rolled off, it was paid out. So that's when we put in the capital levy. And we were able to put the capital levy in with a minimal to 0 impact on overall tax rate for taxpayers because it just replaced what the bond had previously been occupying. Initially in 2018, the plan was that we would be putting a bond on the ballot in 2022. That's what we were looking at doing. In 2022, knowing that we wanted to try to put a bond on the ballot maybe in 24, when we reauthorized the capital levy, we set the collection for higher amounts for the first 2 years, and then the collection on the levy will go down for the last 2 years. And that's represented in the graph by the green. So you can see that for the final 2 years of that capital levy, the green bars go way down because the collection will be dramatically reduced. By doing that, we have now created the capacity for the bond to sit on top, and that's represented by the purple bars there at the end. So overall, when you look at this, you have the dark blue, which is what the state is taking for property tax, the gold, which is what is funding our EP&O local levy for our annual budget. The red is the old bond, the green is the current capital levy, and the purple is what the new bond will be. So we created that capacity knowing that ultimately we would want to have a bond in place and that need would be present in order for us to do major construction. And that is how we're able to do this without pushing tax rates up like $1 per 1,000 like you're seeing in some other school districts. Historically speaking, right now, our taxpayers are paying the lowest amount per 1,000 that they've paid in over 20 years. That's what this graph shows. This graph basically shows this information with a lot of numbers. So over time, at the peak, it was over $4.40 in the early stages in 2002, 2003 per 1,000. In 2022, it was $2.24. So currently, our taxpayers have been paying less per 1,000 than they have over the last 20 years. When we look at our neighbors across the county in Kitsap, also we come in right now at the lowest tax rate in the entire county. So again, our taxpayers have been getting a pretty good value for what they're putting in. We're doing a lot with quite a bit less than what our neighbors are doing for the most part. Even with a small increase, we'll still be extremely competitive in that regard. And then when I look out across the state, I just took the time to look at what about other school districts where they have similar assessed valuation overall. So here in North Kitsap, we have just shy of $11 billion of taxable parcel. When you look at districts who have kind of the same amount of taxable parcel, again, in 2022, we were at the bottom. We had the lowest rate statewide. So again, even with a nominal increase for taxes, we will still be extremely competitive in terms of what our taxpayers are being asked to do to support schools. So I'm not going to tell you that an increase is great news, and I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't come without a lot of thought and consideration, and this is a significant topic of debate for both the Finance and Facility Committee. But at the end of the day, the number is significant. It's $242 million that we'll be bonding out. It's not insignificant, but I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning, and that is that a new elementary school is currently bidding out at $70 million. And if we're going to look at 2 elementary schools and the whole roster of work that I've just explained to you, this is the amount of money that it will take for us to do these projects over the next 4 to 6 years. That's the reality of it. And when we do that, we know that we can accomplish that with a 10 cent per 1,000 tax rate adjustment. Essentially, if your home is valued at $500,000, it's $50 a year to you. That's the difference. And for that amount, we can do this entire roster of projects across the entire district, enhancing the educational experience of kids at every single school, and that we would be able to accomplish quite a bit in terms of this particular campus and helping students have a quality experience. And so, as I said at the outset, I am going to be a lifelong resident of this area. And when I think about that, and I think about the importance of our students and what they will give back to us over their lifetime, the investment is certainly warranted. So I just want to remind everyone to please vote by February 13th. And as always, my contact information is always open. I always welcome outreach from the community with those questions or concerns, and I've made myself very available to community members to discuss those questions and concerns along the way. That's what I have to share about the bond program. So I appreciate your attention. I'm happy to take some questions. We'll take one per person and just kind of work our way through and go from there. So I saw your hand first.
Hi, I'm Diane Monroe, and I was just curious on the Finn Hill location. Finn Hill being the only east-west, whatever corridor out of the city of Paulsville and 2-lane road. What's the plans that the city is gonna bond or levy? And what are they gonna be able to do to accommodate that amount of traffic of the school from the intersection?
So the question was, what's going to be done at Finn Hill to try to accommodate the traffic from a potential new school at that site? The answer is part of the construction process, and what we've built into the cost of the school is mitigation for traffic. The city will require us to assist them with some type of mitigating factor. So whatever, I don't know what that will be specifically. We'll have to engage with them once the bond is in and we know we're moving forward. We start that process of talking with them. I anticipate the city is going to shoulder some of that as well, though, because that whole area is about to be annexed by Paulsbo. If you look at the UGA, the Urban Growth Act, and what Paulsbo is doing, that next section between Viking Way to the highway is clearly it's denoted in their plans that that's going to all be annexed in. So at some point, they're going to be doing something around that to start with. So I would anticipate the construction of the school will probably drive some conversation for that as well. Yes.
I have a question. I went to Bridalwood one time ago, and I know it's a big topic. The money that was spent on the property for Pearson, could we not have put some of that to start demolishing Bridalwood and rebuild that area to help move some of the Midland is getting a lot of houses built by it.
Yes.
Since we already have that piece of property, how come we can't use it?
That's a great question. So the question was, what about Bridalwood? That's
Yeah.
And I would say that I don't know that I've done a presentation, or I don't get asked about Bridal Brook Elementary, so I appreciate the question. When we look, so one of the things that we do as a school district is we engage with a demographer firm, and they basically map out where all our kids live. And where they anticipate future kids are coming from, just based on birth rates, locations of families, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. New construction, they do a lot of factoring in. Bridal Brook is a really interesting conundrum. So back around the time that it was built, a lot of families built homes there, and their kids all went to the school, and then the kids got older and they left, and the people who bought the homes didn't leave. And so there are very few children living around Bridal Brook. And the conundrum we run into at Bridal Brook is if we try to, let's just say, take that down and put a school there, I would have to pluck kids from Wolfley and Vinland who could almost walk to school and put them on a bus to Bridal Brook. So like the location of that campus doesn't fit the actual demographic trend of where our kids live. Does that make sense? So right now what we see is the density map of our students is really on a line as the crow flies between Vinland Elementary and Paulsbo Elementary. So when we think about a location of a school that would help alleviate the crowding issue and serve kids, it's a school located on that line. That's why we're looking at the Fenholm parcel. Yes?
Hi, I'm a parent of two boys at Palms Elementary, and I'm seeking an answer as to why our school was the only school in the district that was left off the bond. And it's not because of the gym. Other schools are getting levy money. And speaking of the gym, it said will break ground in March. I spoke with the county today, and we still haven't finished permitting, and all the delays that have happened are on the end of the district and not the county. Also, our school was not included because of falling enrollment. Your consultants that you just mentioned show that our school is actually going to be growing in the coming years. It's not because we can house all of our students in our current building, because there are no classrooms for the 29 students in the old portable, or an extra classroom to reduce the overloaded kindergarten classes. It's not because we have a state-of-the-art building with proper ventilation that doesn't need investment over the next 20 years. So why is the health and safety of the kids at Suquamish not as important as everyone else? What is the real reason we are being left out? Is it just gross oversight, or is it pure discrimination? I don't know. I'm just trying to get answers, and I'm a parent that's trying to advocate for my kids.
Okay, thank you for your question. So there was a lot in there, but what I'll try to do is to address the question as best I know how. When we look at the facility condition assessment report for our elementary schools, Suquamish gets the highest score of all elementary schools. So that is the truth, and that is what is there. Secondly, a number of projects have taken place at Suquamish Elementary over the years, including in the 2001 bond. In that bond, Suquamish got a significant amount of funding in order to have what we would call a mid-cycle refresh. Numerous mechanical projects were undertaken, as well as interior finishes and exterior finishes were done. That was in 2006 and 2007. We prioritize Suquamish so much that we are guaranteeing that they're getting their major project, regardless of the fate of the bond. That was the decision that was made in 2022 when we went ahead and put that on the capital levy project list. Initially, we wanted that project to get done first. The county at the time is experiencing a 200-day wait on permitting. That is the truth. I understand that you don't believe that, and I understand. We talk with them every week. So I'm not gonna argue with you because that's just not professional or polite, but I know the story and I know what we're doing. So we have been waiting for permitting. We are putting it out to bid next week. So we have all assurances that we'll have a green light and be ready to go, and we plan to do that. That's the answer.
Further the have and have not. That's what we decided.
Lauren, Mike's.
I just wanted to add
Yeah.
on that permit,
Sure.
we heard this morning that once we bid it and we actually choose the contractor, there's a pre-conference meeting with the contractor that we have, that's when they'll issue the permit. So their process, we are in the process of filing the permit, but we have to go through the bid process to pick the contractor to be able to make that happen. So it is happening, and we will follow the schedule that you're talking about.
Thanks, Mike. Yes.
Kind of a long question. Why did the district recently buy the Slippery Creek property at 4 times its assessed value when you own slightly
So we didn't buy it for 4 times the assessed value. We can't do that. We're gonna have to agree to disagree on that. The reason that parcel was purchased is because, again, when you look at where the trend line is for where students are residing within our school district, the density of students in that area between Vinland and Paulsbo Elementary is right there. When you look at the UGA for Paulsbo, it says that there's going to be expansion between Viking Way to the highway, new homes, new families, more kids. That's gonna be the area that's gonna be the most impacted. So trying to look future forward, that parcel was acquired initially because we were thinking that the growth of the district would warrant an additional school. At this point, when we're looking at trends, we're seeing this all across the county, and you know right now Bainbridge is having some very difficult conversations about closing schools. Birth rates have declined. Families are not relocating out to this part of the area as they are in the south. So we would look to replace the school. And the reason we're moving it there is because, again, the density of students in that area is greater. And when you look at the students who are attending Pearson, the majority of them are on the north end of the attendance zone. Look, I'm not gonna argue with you in front of a crowd. I appreciate your perspective.
Sherman Hill, south, go this way. Majority of the students who go to this school are from the north and south end of the district.
We'll have to agree to disagree on
I
that.
transport.
I understand, thank you, John. Yes.
Hi, I'm Shelley Weatherby. I'm also a parent of 3 kids who've gone to St. Thomas Shelby and graduated from it. You mentioned Wolfley. The replacement of Wolfley is mainly based on age.
It's partly age, it's partly construction, it's partly design, and it's the inability to modernize the facility as it sits now without major displacement of students.
Okay, with that said, what was the funding that you mentioned, the SCAP funding that the state is providing?
They are, they'll provide somewhere on the order of, I'm gonna say $5 million. I'm looking at Mike to confirm that.
And what is,
The SCAP, sorry, the question is the SCAP funding from the state that would be going towards Wolfley, it's about $5 million.
you need to spell that out.
Can I let that?
You need to spell that out.
Spell what out?
Oh, SCAP.
Construction Assistance Program.
State Construction
So
Assistance
state-
Program.
It's the state match money that we receive.
Jim?
Dr. Rhodes, when you did the review of the location for Slippery Pig, how did that stack up relative to the distance and access from the base?
So when we acquired the land and we had the conversations about having Pearson be located to that land, we did a lot of discussion and examination about transport times for students for the school. And from the base, it's actually about the same transport time because of the ability to use Highway 3 and the easy access to Flint Hill. So ultimately, that was part of the decision-making process as well, is it actually does allow for good access from the base.
One more.
Oh, sure.
Just so I understand, if the bond does not pass, how do we pay for the new facility to be built?
It will not be built.
Oh, okay, I just wasn't sure, there's like a backup plan.
There's the only way that a school district, it's not just North, this is all school districts. The only way we're able to build new buildings is through a bond issuance. There's just no way to clear that kind of money through a levy. So we would be relying on a bond. If the bond does not pass, there'll be quite a bit of discussion about what do we do next in terms of trying to provide facilities, continue to do improvements. But the chances of doing a complete rebuild of this facility will be off the table. Yes, Stacy.
I'm Stacy Schmuckel, and to be transparent, I am on the con committee for this bond. I'm on the con committee for this bond. I did run with Kenny E's pro committees for the levies previously. And the reason I'm here to ask a question is because I have 3 things that you've said significantly that concern me tonight.
Can you speak up, please?
Yeah, I have 3 concerns that were said tonight that have me concerned. So one is you've said publicly that there's no state funding, and then you mentioned the grant SCAP funding. So there is some funding from the state that can be used for building. And then
It's reliant on the passage of a bond.
has to be matched. And also that if the bond does fail this time, the school district can run another bond that would include all students, including the Squamish Elementary and facilities. and they have the opportunity to run that again. And in fact, a public records request from the CFAC meeting from November of 2022 shows that you have a contingency to run it again in April.
That was discussed as a potential contingency, not the contingency.
Okay, so you do have 3 options that you could run it again this year.
There are
if it
other
fails.
options to run the bond, but that's not gonna be a decision that I make or the board makes in isolation. That's gonna require a lot of discussion and meetings. That is going to be under a clock, because to file for that election, we have to turn on and do that by the beginning of March.
Okay, but there, I
It's
just
not
want
a
to be
lot of
clear,
time.
that a no vote is not a never vote. It is a not yet vote. Let's have a plan for everyone. So my question is, currently your demographic study that you show on your website shows that you anticipate between Pearson and Vinland Elementary School a total of 1,030 students. Capacity currently here is 296, of which we're currently at 295, according to your chart. And Vinland is over capacity. So if I take the Pearson students and the expected the 309 Pearson students and the Vinland students, you take the capacity of the Vinland Elementary School and the capacity of your new Slippery Pig School, which is 450.
Pearson Elementary.
What?
Pearson Elementary is what will that school be called.
Okay, well, that falls into my question. But if I take that, you are 130 students at minimum over capacity from what you already have to plan for before 40% of this bond is even paid off. Why are you not making a plan to meet the capacity of the Pearson students? And this records request shows that your contingency, and I spoke with Jen Mercurian, the communications director today, is that you'll need to build something else in Pearson. This Pearson community deserves to know what your plan is so their students don't move up the road to Slippery Pig and then have to move back to the Pearson community. What is the plan is my question for the Pearson families, because it seems to me that that property that's in the Vinland district is being sold as a new school for Pearson. We'll call it Pearson, but it's really a second campus for Vinland students and the overflow and the growth happening in Vinland. That is my question.
I don't know that, I'm trying to track what the question actually was, but we will have that new campus be called Pearson, and it will remain Pearson. That is going to be the ongoing name and the ongoing campus. In terms
it's
of
not in the Pearson
Stacy, I'm
community.
not gonna argue with you in front of a crowd, I'm really sorry, I'm just not. So we have done a lot of work and a lot of study about what the capacity is and what the need is for students, and when we look at what that facility will accommodate and what Vinland is able to accommodate, we believe that we will be able to address the needs for student enrollment in the foreseeable future
How?
by having this facility accommodate enough students, Stacy. Thank you for your question. Jeremy?
And I'm asking this question as a parent of 4 children in the North Kitsap School District. I am not asking this question in any way, form, attached to my role. But I do have 4 kids, and we do actually live in the Pearson area. My kids are older. But one thing we're hearing, and we're seeing across the county, is that drop in enrollment. We see it, I see it all the time on Facebook. Lots of faces that I've seen for the first time live here today, really screaming that we're not doing anything as a district to counter that drop in enrollment, because enrollment equals money. My big question is, not passing the bond, not giving kids the equitable learning facilities that they deserve when we can see Central's got some wonderful facilities. What other options are there for us to entice people to come here when we are hindered as a community in the spaces that we can provide the kids? And I'm new to the area, I've only been out here 3 years, but I've seen lots of learning spaces in my lifetime, and our kids deserve this.
Agreed.
In their community.
So I think the difficulty is without the support of the community to be able to do these projects, we just run into a lot of difficulties about how we provide quality instructional spaces for kids. One of the things that I think is important and worthwhile to mention is the staff here for the last several years has done tremendous work with students and partnering with Keyport establishing some really amazing programming in the areas of ROV development and STEM and STEAM education. And that work is intended to be honored in the new facility by having it be purpose-built and program-driven around STEM and STEAM education. The vision that has been kind of floated out and that we've talked about in terms of just student experience is how might we look at that being some type of a STEM, STEAM-oriented facility that would be an academy-style setting for these students. Honoring the work of the faculty for the last several years and developing some great programming and specials and exposure for students, and being able to have spaces that actually support that, whereas right now they're really having to work hard to just make this building conform to the things that they want or need for kids. And it's just an uphill battle every day right now. We would love to honor that. Nancy?
A clarifying question. It's my understanding that the Capital Facilities Committee, Facilities Advisory Committee.
Nancy, can you speak up a little bit?
It's my understanding.
I'll repeat the question.
Okay.
My understanding that the Facilities Advisory Committee and the Finance Advisory Committee have met for over 2 years. Representing citizens, is that correct?
That is correct. So the question was, her understanding is that the Capital Facilities Advisory Committee has been meeting for at least 2 years. Actually, I would say the conversation in that committee started in 2018, and that committee is comprised of some NK staff, but also a number of community members, many of whom have industry experience or expertise. And those conversations started in 2018 because that's when we put the first capital levy on. The intent was in 2022 to run a bond. And so part of the short and long range discussion that was taking place that year was around a potential bond measure. So this conversation has been underway for a long time. The board has been brought along on that in an open public meeting. I've gone out and spoken with community groups. Every time we've gone out for a levy, I showed a chart very similar to what I've shown you, where it demarcated a 2022 bond. In 2022, when I went out to the community and spoke about that levy, I very clearly showed we intend to put a bond. There's actually a slide in that deck that says, spoiler alert, February 2024 bond. That is the slide in the deck. So we've been very clear that this is where we've been headed for a long time. Yes, Susie?
Hi everybody, I have a question. You mentioned STEAM versus STEM. The A in STEAM is for arts. So my main passion for the children is that they get to have arts in their education in a variety of forms, theater, music, arts. And I'm worried when I look at the bond plan at the high school level, everything I see in the bond high school level plan is all sports related. I'm definitely not against sports. I appreciate the sports, but not all kids do sports. And I would like to know why the plan only addresses sports and nothing else.
Sure, because the arts facilities that would be needed to be done are part of a larger construction project that would be done at each high school. So right now, Kingston High School has a beautiful band room, a great facility to support their students. We have an auditorium and a full theater setup for all of our venue that we use for both community and school events. For us to address new classrooms at North, we would need to basically redo that entire school. Right now, elementary schools are bidding at $70 million, the new high school is bidding over $300 million. And right now, at a bonded capacity, we cannot really fundraise that and not have a significant impact on it. Yes.
Did I miss what's gonna happen to Pearson? This property, is it gonna be sold to offset the cost of the new school?
At this point, that's a great question. The question was, what's going to happen to this parcel? So at this point in time, the plan would be to go ahead and demolish the building and take it down. At that point, we need to take a really good, long, hard look. There's some things in play that I think will have some consideration on the future of the parcel. One is the UGA for the county. The other one is there is some early stir in the legislature around pre-K, pre-kindergarten for preschool. That's something that may evolve over the next 8 to 10 years, and if when that happens, we're going to have some conversation about how we serve that type of program. So we would prefer to be able to have some flexibility, but honestly, that's not like a decision I can tell you I'm going to make right here and now. That's not my decision to make. That would be something that would be done in conjunction with the facilities committee. Yes.
I've been a teacher here, and I taught for 20 years in California, and I was a substitute teacher here and at the high school and at the elementary school. What I found was the art department at the North Kitsap was adequate. I don't understand why you say it needs a new building. And the other problem is, when you mention STEM, STEM doesn't work for all kids. We have a whole lot of kids who aren't up to that level or want to be at that level. We need more vocational. We need wood shop back. We need auto shop back. We need the arts, which you have to understand teaches critical thinking and gives the kids choices that they don't get in any other classes. And I always had my classes hooked in with the science kids and the language kids. And it's like, it seems to be going over everybody's head. We need vocational training, not just STEM. And it helps the special ed department because it gets those kids ready, some of them ready for jobs. It gets some of them ready that are just regular, normal kids that aren't STEM, that aren't going to college, that can't afford to go to college or whatever. And I think that I'm hearing an overlooking of future for the kids, not just now.
I'm not sure that I heard a question, but I think the comment I would make in
My
response to
question
that
is, why aren't we doing more vocational and
Sure.
stop all this STEM stuff that is already going on, but
So-
help the kids out that need to get out and be working when they get out of high school?
Sure, so when we're talking about STEM, we're talking about science, technology, and engineering and math, all of which are core underlying foundational tenets of most CTE programmings, which is career and technical education.
You're missing.
John is here, he oversees CTE. I'd encourage you to talk with him after the meeting if you have questions about how we're doing vocational preparation for students. We have a number of programs at both high schools and middle schools that are oriented towards that, and a great
You don't
partnership
have
with
the right
West Sound Tech.
classes.
I appreciate your opinion, but we do a lot to serve our kids who are looking at a vocational pathway.
I have an easy.
I'll take one last question.
How often are building assessments done?
How often are building assessments done? It's generally somewhere between a 5 and an 8 year cycle. So if I'm remembering correctly, we're engaging in that process again this summer. So the last one we had was in 2018.
And you do all the schools?
We do all the schools, all physical structures across the district, schools, admin building, the maintenance and facilities building, the transportation building, all the structures that we
Can I ask
have.
one quick question?
I'll take one last one in the back here and then we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. It's you, yeah, Regina.
What is the district's policy for transportation times, within the area of a school? Finland is, I believe, 1.5 miles away from the proposed build location. It's pretty close, so that doesn't necessarily pass my logic check for serving this community.
So what we strive to do is to keep ride time each direction to an hour or less. I would say on the whole, we do that pretty well. There are times where that's more challenging than others, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. And it's a great question to talk to Mike about, or you can also talk to the transportation group about. But when we look at where students are and ridership time for students from whether it's here or at the new site, the goal will be to keep it under an hour, and that's what we will be doing. I appreciate